I identified 5 mass graves from the Sukching, including one I investigated called Rifle Range. But I had a feeling this was just the tip of the iceberg. The perpetrators had no interest in keeping records of those they killed. To get to the truth, I'd have to talk to survivors and their families. I met a local historian, Andrew Huang, whose father had lived through the Sukching.
Why did you ask to meet here?
Well, Bukit Dambao is where we are. This was the site of 2 mass graves. So they came and they dug up a pit. In the pit, they found 250 skulls.
It was right around here?
Yeah, well, it's somewhere down there.
Incredibly, here were more Sukching mass graves, not mentioned in any official records or memorials.
So how many people were executed during the Sukching?
In Penang, on the island, 5,000, probably more. They basically added up the various places, 1,000 bodies in Rifle Range, about 1,000 bodies in the Penang prison. They were buried on site, you see, and in the prison grounds itself. And then there was about, maybe in Kum Hill, there's another location, there's supposed to be a couple of thousand there. There were also others at Batu Ferringhi by the beach. And those bodies, we don't even know whether they were buried or they were thrown into the sea. 5,000, I think, is a very conservative figure.
During the 1946 war crimes trial in Penang, a gravedigger testified to burying 1,000 bodies. It was only after this shocking revelation that the British exhumed the bodies.
So if bodies here were exhumed, why weren't the bodies at Rifle Range exhumed?
Oh, they were, but 10 years after the war crimes trials, in 1956. And that was because they wanted to develop the area, to turn it into public housing. And it was going to be multi-storied public housings. So in the process of excavating, preparing the land, they discovered these bones. Obviously they had to stop work and figure out what to do with all these bones.
It was starting to make sense. The bodies weren't under those apartment blocks. They were discovered because of them, because the site had been excavated. It was a pure chance discovery.
So in the end, the local authorities had no choice. They had to get it all cremated, and the ashes were put in boxes and buried in various cemeteries.
So why wasn't Rifle Range on the list of exhumations on the memorial?
Yes, we're talking of different years. The earlier exhumations, when they were interested in locating bodies of Japanese victims, that was all done in 46 and 47. But this is 56. 10 years had gone by.
So the bodies at Rifle Range were discovered after the anti-war memorial had been built. That explained its omission. During the chaos of war and its aftermath, statistics are the last thing on many people's minds. And those who commit war crimes have no interest in having the details revealed. Eventually, some of those responsible for killing innocent people were held accountable. On 31st August 1946, 32 Japanese stood before the British military in the Penang war crimes trial. But one war criminal was notably absent, Tadashi Suzuki.
Suzuki Tadashi died in April 1945. 1st of April 1945, he was on a ship going back home to Japan. So the ship was the HS Awamaru. And HS Awamaru was torpedoed by the USS Queenfish, I think. This is an American submarine. He was drowned during the incident.
Getting the full picture of the Sukching massacre seemed impossible. The Rifle Range mass grave had been exhumed years after the anti-war memorial was built. And now I was standing where the Japanese had buried even more. Andrew Huang mentioned more bodies may have been tossed into the sea. There was no way to know for certain how many had been killed. It was through Suzuki that I had begun to understand the true horror that had gripped Penang. He became the symbol of a time of absolute terror, the Sukching massacre. Some 800 of the Sukching's victims in Penang had been laid to rest at a memorial. There was no way of knowing the actual number of innocent people killed. There were no records. Those unaccounted for were what some people here call lost souls.